Hi there, it's Dave here, and in this video we're going to talk about how imbalances in the microbiome can contribute to constipation. Slow the bowel down so that you're not going to the toilet very much. And the first thing I want to say is that while we're going to be talking about imbalances in the microbiome, good bugs, bad bugs, bacteria, parasites, things like that, we always must remember that they don't spontaneously fall out of balance without any reason whatsoever. So it's also really important when we're talking about changes in the microbiome that might lead to digestive symptoms, that we really understand why those changes in the microbiome develop in the first place. Because we can use lab testing and herbs and medications to knock out bad bugs and replenish the good bugs. But if we don't address the reasons they fell out of balance in the first place, then ultimately they may just fall back to the same initial imbalance and all the symptoms return again. So our microbiome is very delicate. There are trillions of microbes in the digestive system, as you know. There are many different types. There's bacteria, there's yeast and fungal organisms, there's viruses, there's parasites, and when everything is nicely balanced, they don't typically cause too many problems. Even the bad guys can hang around in there and literally not cause many problems whatsoever. The issues develop when the microbiome becomes imbalanced. And there are many reasons why the microbiome can start to fall out of balance. And so some of those are things like diet and nutrient status. That's an obvious one. Too much sugar, too much processed food, too many fats. That can have a profound impact on the microbiome. You've got medical drugs. There's a whole bunch of different medical drugs that go in there and upset the microbiome. Of course, antibiotics is the main one. Antifungals are another group, but literally any chemical going into your system that shouldn't really be there, that the body doesn't know what to do with, has the potential to disrupt the balance of the microbes. Alcohol consumption and smoking, other recreational drugs, they can have a profound effect on the microbiome. Stress has been shown to have a profound effect on the microbiome. Just our emotional changes and the different signals that are being sent down through the brain to the through the nervous system and into the GI tract, that can impact the microbiome. Our hormonal balance, the thyroid, the sex hormones, the adrenal hormones, they can all influence the microbiome as well. And then finally, even things like posture can be relevant. So if we're hunched over all the time and the nervous system starts to get upset by changes in spinal position, then the signals through those nerves to the digestive organs can change, and even posture and problems with our musculoskeletal system ultimately may alter the microbiome and our digestive function as well. That's where a good osteopath, chiropractor, that kind of guy or gal can come in and really help out. So what are the bugs that we're talking about here? Well, in my experience as a clinician and with my associates, we've really found, without any question whatsoever, that many of these bad bugs, when they're there in excessive quantities, can alter digestive function, slow the bowel down, and cause constipation. But they don't always cause constipation in every single person. In some people, they can cause diarrhea. And so it's really an individual response to an individual set of microbial imbalances that determines which symptoms present in each individual. So H. pylori. H. pylori predominantly lives in the stomach. If you have a problem in the stomach, it can act like a domino effect and cause problems all the way down the system, and constipation can be one of the outcomes. H. pylori can reduce stomach acid levels, which can then upset other digestive functions further down the chain of command. And H. pylori has also been shown to disrupt the microbiome further down the digestive tract as well, which might also create problems. Parasites. There's a whole range of different parasites. Some of them are tiny microscopic things. You can't see them, but they can be pretty nasty and cause a lot of problems. Things like Blastocystis hominis, Entamoeba histolytica, Giardia, Cryptosporidium, and those kinds of things. And there's also worms. Now and again, we see a case of hookworm. We might see a case of whipworm or tapeworm, and they can also disrupt digestive function and cause constipation as well. Then we have a really common one, which is yeast and fungal overgrowth. We're supposed to have some friendly yeast and fungi living in our digestive system. As long as the whole thing is nice and balanced, they'll typically help us and they won't hinder us. They'll be beneficial for us and they won't cause symptoms. The problem occurs when, for example, we have a stressful period, we have some trauma and injury, we end up in hospital, we have to take antibiotics for whatever reason, and lo and behold, now these organisms are very opportunistic and they'll grow at the slightest opportunity. When all the good bugs are messed up, these yeast and fungal organisms tend to proliferate very quickly and take over that ecological niche in the digestive system. And that can cause a whole range of different problems as well. We do see viruses now and again, but the viruses are typically more associated with loose stools and diarrhea. But there are some research studies that indicate that chronic viral issues in the digestive system might contribute to a whole range of different symptoms. And then finally, really important one, and it's kind of a last but not least with this one, we've got small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, or SIBO. Now, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth is when you have a whole raft of microbes, bacteria, overgrowing in the small intestine. We're supposed to have lots of microbes in the small intestine, but we're supposed to have a gazillion times more microbes in the large intestine. So one of the main models for the development of small intestinal bacterial overgrowth is we have a migration upwards of tons and tons of these microbes, bacteria from the large intestine up into the small intestine, and they overload and overwhelm the small intestine. And it can go either way, depending on the types of bacteria that overgrow. You can move into a situation where you have predominantly constipation, or you can move into a situation where you have predominantly loose stools and diarrhea, or you can have a mixture of loose stools and constipation, on different days or during different weeks, depending on which of these microbes are dominating at that particular time. And you have some microbes that overgrow and produce a gas called methane. You have some that overgrow and produce a gas called hydrogen, and you have some that overgrow and produce hydrogen sulfide. And so the symptoms seem to be associated largely with the types of gases that these microbes are producing. Now, the cool thing is, you can figure all of this out. There are lab tests that you can do at home that can tell you pretty much exactly what is going on with all of this. And I've done some video series explaining those tests in a lot more detail for you to take a look at, and I'll put the links to those in the zone beneath the video window here. But what about the friendly bugs? Well, we've already said that a lot of these factors, diet, medical drugs, alcohol, stress, hormonal balance, posture, and what have you, might upset the microbiome. And so some of the good guys that are supposed to be there in really large numbers can actually become depleted. And when they become depleted, that's what opens the door for all the bad guys to overgrow, because they tend to grow very opportunistically, as I've said. So things like lactobacillus, bifidobacter, friendly strains and friendly versions of E. coli, and you can list literally dozens, if not hundreds more of these good guys that are supposed to be in there, all living in harmony, supporting your immune system, helping you digest food, sending chemical signals to the cells in your intestines, keeping your inflammation levels down, helping to fight off infections and all of these different functions. So if we become deficient in these guys because of our lifestyle, then the bad guys tend to invade and take over. And one of the end products of that can be constipation. So if you don't find that changing your diet, cutting out all the foods that we mentioned in the previous video, if you don't find that that works, you still have chronic constipation, even though you've made those changes, then the next place to look is what's going on with the microbiome. Are there problems, imbalances there that may be contributing to the symptoms? Now, if you'd like help in doing that, in exploring how you can investigate the microbiome, then again, the links on how to contact us, how to book a case review and consultation, or to learn more about the lab testing are all beneath the video window here, and I hope you find them helpful. So in the next video, I'm just going to go into a little bit more detail about some of the other factors that can contribute to constipation that are a little bit deeper, that are not often mentioned, not often talked about. Things like thyroid hormone deficiencies, sex hormone balance, and things like that, because the hormonal function of the body can really have a profound influence on the digestive system. And when the hormones go out of balance, sometimes the digestion can really start to play up. So I want to link in different body systems so that we're not just focusing on the GI tract. And as I say, that'll be the focus of the next video. Hope this one's been helpful, and I look forward to seeing you again soon. Thank you.